On today's episode, we study the effects of creatine supplementation in largemouth bass. We talk about the lure that you are least confident in. The Bassmaster Elite Series wrapped up their second event of the season at Lake Martin, and we get into some great topics in the mailbag, including soft plastic brands, Prespawn bait choice, bladed jigs, and more on today's episode of Tackle Talk.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Dance, and you're listening to Tackle Talk.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast, brought to you by The Rod Locker. Premium gear and expert advice from a staff you can trust. Now, here's your host, Andrew Hayes.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Tackle Talk Podcast. As always, we are brought to you by the great folks over at The Rod Locker. And right now, if you're listening to this on Tuesday when this episode comes out, you have one more day to take advantage of their great President's Day sale that they're running over at therodlocker.com, where they're running up to 50% off select items on the website. I am looking at the page right now. They have half off Berkley slobber knockers. Normally those are $11. Right now they're on sale for $5.49. Same thing with the Berkley Powerbait Power Stinger trailers. Normally $10, on sale for $4.99. They have Berkley Nessies for $7.99. They've got Beast Coast Slow Flow swim baits for $3.40 a pack. They've got Jackal Drift Fry 4.0s on sale for $6.99 a pack. Normally $14. They've got some Bass Mafia Dangerous swim baits, the unrigged version, normally $15, on sale for $7.49. They have Z-Man Big Blade chatterbaits on sale for $5.99. Normally those are $12. They've got Spro Fat Papa Square Bills on sale for $8.89. Normally almost $18. I mean, some crazy deals going on here. Spro Outsider crankbaits like the MR60s. You've got Secret Lures MVP flipping jigs on sale for $2.49 a piece. And those are only a couple of the 42 items they have on this webpage that are severely marked down for their President's Day sale over at the Rod Locker. So you can go to therodlocker.com, check out their President's Day sale. You have one day left if it's Tuesday when you're listening to this to take advantage of this. Also go check out their ever-expanding line of used gear. They have an awesome selection of used rods and reels up on the website right now. And as always, you can use code TACKLETALKFebruary. That's going to save you an extra 5% off your entire order just for listening to Tackle Talk, a great way to support an awesome Midwestern tackle shop that's running some killer sales right now. So that is www.therodlocker.com, and you can use code TACKLETALKFebruary. All right, the first thing we have here today, the Bassmaster Elite Series just wrapped up their second event of the season in 2 weeks. So the first event of the season ended last Sunday. We heard about that on last week's show. Hank Cherry takes home your win on an old school grub, no forward-facing sonar, just a really fun event to watch. And that was at Lake Guntersville. And then the boys made a trip over to Lake Martin for the second event of the season in back-to-back weekends. And this was a totally different event. Again, last week, no live sonar, Guntersville, big fish, a very different feel than going over to Lake Martin, where you have all kinds of numbers, but the big fish are definitely few and far between. This was more of a numbers game, and live sonar was available for the guys to use. So a very different event here. We will start with your top 10, and then we'll hit a couple quick notes before we move on. So your top 10 here from the Bassmaster Elite Series at Lake Martin in Alexander City, Alabama. 10th place went to Caleb Hudson. 9th went to Cody Meyer. 8th place, Paik South. 7th place went to Robert G. 6th place, Chris Zaldane. 5th went to Joey Cifuentes. 4th place, Easton Fothergill. 3rd, Emil Wagner. 2nd, Brock Mosley. And 1st place, a young man that we should all be keeping our eye on from here on out, Fisher Anaya. So the Bassmaster Elite Series rookie, Fisher Anaya, gets his first Elite Series victory in just his second event. And I believe Fisher is only like 20 years old, so not even old enough to drink yet, holding up his first blue trophy, $100,000, I think with his cash bonus, $102,000, with a total weight of 54 pounds and 6 ounces. Fisher Anaya, I guess you could say, annihilated the competition this week. He beat Brock Mosley in second place by about 1.5 pounds, which might not sound like a ton until you realize that this is very much a numbers tournament, and finding a fish over 3-4 pounds is tough to do. at Lake Martin as we saw this week. So a lot of numbers, a ton of fish caught, and it is kind of fun to watch these grinder type of tournaments where you're watching guys cull fish. You know, they have a 1 pound 7-ounce fish and they're trying to cull it with a 1 pound 8-ounce fish, and that does actually move them up like 10 spots. Like, this is one of those events where, to me, as a guy that fishes a lot of tough water, and not to say that Lake Martin's tough, but, you know, tough in terms of like giant fish, it's fun to watch these guys catch fish that are about the same size that I would be catching at my local lakes and watching them kind of grind one out. So congratulations to Fisher Anaya. It is so cool to see these young guys that are just, I said this before and I'll say it again, are way more mature than I ever was at age 20. You have these guys that are coming up that are absolute sticks. They are hammers. I don't care what anybody says, with forward facing, without forward facing. This young group of anglers that we've had over the past probably 3 years has been incredible. They are light years ahead of where people were at their age 15, 20 years ago, just in terms of knowledge, in terms of battle testedness. I mean, these guys have been fishing since they were in high school competitively, and they're getting up to the Elite Series after having like 7 or 8 years under their belt, traveling across the country, fishing in these competitive tournaments in high school and college. And you're just getting this breeding ground for young anglers that are going to take this sport by storm. And it's so much fun to watch them every single year. Fisher Anaya is a great example of that. There are some in this top 10 that we can talk about as well. Emil Wagner is one of those guys. Easton Fothergill, obviously, winning the Bassmaster Classic at such a young age. Robert G. is up there a lot. Caleb Hudson is a good one that you're going to want to watch out for this year. A lot of really great young anglers. And I will say that after 2 events this year, one with and one without live sonar, I think this type of split schedule is going to be so much fun to watch throughout the year. And I was a little skeptical of it at first, but I'm definitely warming up to it if it stays the way that these first 2 events have been, where you get to see a great mix of all different types of fishing. So congratulations to Fisher Anaya, your newest Bassmaster Elite Series champion. All right, next up here on the show today, I've got something a little bit out of left field for you guys. I was doing my normal thing. I was browsing online. I went down the research study rabbit hole like I typically do sometimes, and I stumbled across a title that I could not help but click on. And I figured it would make for a fun little hit on today's show because of how so far off of what I typically read in these studies that this study was. A lot of what I read is about forage or harvest numbers or diet studies, electroshocking. Those are all pretty normal things in the fishing community in terms of research studies, but this one kind of caught my eye a little bit. So this study comes to us from the Journal of Aquaculture, and it's a study from Abir Hagazi from the National Water Research Center in Cairo, Egypt. And the study is titled Dietary Creatine Enhances Neurodevelopment and Cognitive Performance in Juvenile Largemouth Bass, Implications for Aquaculture Efficiency and Conservation Strategies. So I won't read the whole thing here, but I will read you the summary or the abstract because I think it's going to give you a good idea of what I was actually trying to digest and trying to read when I made my way through this study. There's a lot of language in here that to most of us, myself included, is going to seem like I'm reading something in Mandarin, but just hear me out. Here's the really quick abstract of this study. It says, creatine contributes to cognition and brain health in mammals. Neuronal regeneration in the teleost brain shows great potential throughout the life cycle. Dietary creatine may be of potential value in aquatic animal brains. Therefore, this study, 6 feeds and 6 different creatine additions of 0%, 0.2%, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, and 4% were formulated and fed to juvenile largemouth bass for 8 weeks. The brain creatine metabolism of largemouth bass was detected by qPCR, Western blot, and high-performance liquid chromatography, HPLC. Dietary creatine significantly increased creatine inventory, mRNA levels in the brain type creatine kinase, protein level of creatine transporter protein SLC6A8. Again, some of this, I don't even know what this means. In the brain of largemouth bass. This indicated that exogenous creatine can effectively pass through the blood-brain barrier of largemouth bass and be deposited in the brain. Western blot for relative quantification of protein levels was found in this study, and the creatine could elevate the protein levels of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, as well as phosphorylated activation of the AKT protein kinase B mTOR mechanistic target of rapamycin kinase. I'm sure somebody that actually knows science stuff thinks I'm an idiot trying to read this, but this is what I was trying to make my way through when I was reading this. And the ERK extracellular signal regulated kinase P90 RSK, and then a whole bunch of other stuff here. I'll just skip over some of this. In this study, dietary creatine significantly upregulated neuroregulated growth factors genes, indicating that dietary creatine promotes neurodevelopment and neurogenesis in the brain. In the present study, multiple experimental setups were used to assess fish behavior. Dietary creatine significantly increased the forward maximum acceleration of largemouth bass in open field testing, significantly increased the exploration time in new object recognition tests, and significantly increased the mean swimming speed and forward maximum acceleration of largemouth bass in sociability study. In locomotor, or in parentheses, swimming, capacity tests, the burst swimming speed after rest was significantly elevated, which possibly resulting in enhanced predation ability. Overall, the findings suggest that long-term dietary creatine promotes largemouth bass brain health and neurodevelopment and enhances cognitive and motor performance. In the future, creatine may have multiple potential applications in aquaculture, such as enhancing the adaptability of stock enhancement fish after returning to nature, strengthening cognitive and motor abilities, therefore increasing the economic benefits of fish rearing and aquaculture production. Okay, that is a lot to try and get through, but I'm going to do my best to simplify this study for you based on what I understood anyway. Basically, I think, and again, I am a simpleton here trying to decipher this study, but I think there's a big difference between wild bass and farm-raised bass, which is what this study is looking at. Stocker bass, right? Bass that are, bred and are raised to be let go somewhere else or used somewhere else. They're in some sort of farm or hatchery setting. Bass by nature are hunters. Like, they are built to survive on natural food sources, and natural food sources have certain elements and benefits to them. A wild largemouth is feeding on natural shad, natural gills, craws, frogs, and is totally different than a fish that is raised in captivity that may be released someday, but for now it's in a controlled environment. So those two fish are eating very different things. The wild bass is eating what it's supposed to be eating all of that natural forage, where that farm-raised or captive bass is likely feeding on pellets or some sort of fish food that they're feeding it. But what the study is showing, I think, is adding certain things to that fish food can greatly benefit the physical development, the growth, the strength, the speed, the overall fitness of that fish. And in this case, that substance that they're adding is creatine. Now, creatine isn't anything new for us as humans, right? If you work out, you might take creatine to increase strength, increase muscle mass, give you like a performance boost in raising your, I think they call it ATP, energy production. Like, you are consuming creatine to help you perform at the highest level during your workout. Well, bass raised in a farm setting don't have access to the natural food sources and meat from fish and crustaceans and amphibians, and is lacking one of those main ways to get nutrients like creatine. So fish food has protein in it, but it has a lot of other stuff in it too, like wheat flour and soy flour, cornstarch, all this extra fluff and filler, and it's not as nutrient dense as real prey is. So I think this study is showing you the benefits of supplementing that fish's food with creatine. And just like you would supplement your regular diet with creatine to perform at peak physical fitness for workouts, that fish that is raised in a farm without supplementation, that's basically a fish that's eating McDonald's and sitting on a couch all day. And then the wild bass is out there eating steak and working out and hunting. So what I found interesting in this study is that the creatine actually impacted a couple things that set off red flags or green flags, I guess, depending on how you want to look at it, to me as an angler. This study highlighted that the addition of creatine in those fish's foods in different levels promotes largemouth bass brain health and neurodevelopment, and it enhanced cognitive and motor performance. So the brain stuff I can kind of set aside because they're fish, right? I don't think adding creatine means that these bass are going to start being, grandmasters in chess or solving Rubik's cubes anytime soon or anything like that. But the physical aspect is interesting to me. So the study said that, quote, dietary creatine significantly increased the forward maximum acceleration of largemouth bass in open field tests, significantly increasing exploration time in new object recognition tests, and significantly increased the mean swimming speed and forward maximum acceleration of largemouth bass. In locomotor or swimming capacity tests, the burst swimming speed after rest was significantly elevated, which possibly resulted in enhanced predation ability. So what you're getting is a faster fish. You're getting a faster max speed just swimming forward like normal. You're getting a more alert and intuitive fish in terms of exploring and recognizing new products, like in our case, a lure, perhaps. And then you're getting faster burst speeds, which for us means a better reaction time to moving baits. So bass that can identify something better, they can start up faster, and they can chase down something better, like a chatterbait, a crankbait, a buzzbait, any of those really fast moving baits. Those are three pieces of the predatory puzzle that are important to us as anglers: recognition, startup time, and pursuit speed. So I didn't think I would fall down the gym bro bass rabbit hole this week, but here we are, I guess. I just think it's an interesting look at the parallels between all living things. Like bass, just like humans, can benefit from particular nutrients or compounds that promote muscle growth and overall strength. And for a bass, it just means rather than being able to, hit their max bench like we do in a human case with creatine, in the aquaculture world, it means that you're getting a faster, smarter fish that has an advantage hunting prey over more creatine, or nutrient deficient fish, at least according to this study, which is only one of probably 10 bajillion studies out there, but a study that I found interesting nonetheless and wanted to share with you all. Okay, next up here on the show today, we have a really interesting, kind of eye-opening fishing poll that we'll get to here in just a second. But first, the Tackle Talk podcast is brought to you in part by Humminbird and Minn Kota. And just like last week, we are going to combine these two prestigious brands because it's important to highlight that Humminbird and Minn Kota were made to work together. So for instance, did you know that there is a feature called Backtrack where you can actually tell your Minn Kota trolling motor to automatically retrace up to the last 2 miles of the most recently logged route on your Humminbird unit? Or how about you can use the Go To feature on your Minn Kota trolling motor to automatically go back to any spot lock or eye track that you want to return to, all through their advanced GPS integration between Humminbird and Minn Kota. They're quite literally designed and optimized to work in sync. I mean, there's a ton of other features, like being able to follow contour lines automatically, circle mode. You can even control your Minn Kota trolling motor speed and steering from compatible Humminbird units without even being up on the trolling motor. You've got locked course autopilot. You've got locked heading autopilot, eye tracks, Humminbird virtual remote, and so much more. So with all of the benefits that those brands have on their own, Humminbird with incredibly detailed imaging, Minn Kota with reliable trolling motors, they're even better together. So for more information, you can head over to www.humminbird.com or www.minnkotamotors.com today. All right, now let's get into this week's fishing poll presented by Humminbird.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Fishing Poll, brought to you by Humminbird. Explore more at humminbird.com.
All right, everybody. On this week's show, in the fishing poll presented by our friends over at Humminbird, I posed a more, I would say, retrospective question to you all, which was simply, what technique or lure are you least confident in? And we talk a lot about our strengths on this show, about constantly improving and trying to get better with certain techniques and trying to always strive to push ourselves to be better. But every single one of us has our weaknesses as an angler. I mean, I have a lot of both. I have a lot of techniques that I think I'm above average in for sure. And then I have quite a few techniques that I know that I am not nearly as proficient as a lot of my friends in. So I guess if I had to pick my strength, and we do the opposite here to start, if I had to pick one bait or technique that I think I'm better than the average angler at, or at least I think I excel with really well, I would probably consider a jerkbait one of my personal strengths as an angler. I'm mediocre at a lot of things, but I really think I'm a pretty good jerkbait angler. I've really worked hard on that over the past probably 5+ years, and it's turned into one of my top confidence baits at the moment, a hard body, like 110-ish sized suspending jerkbait. I would also say over the past 2 years at least, a glide has made its way into my strengths, and I would have laughed at you if you would have told me 3 or 4 years ago that I would be more confident throwing a 7-inch glide bait than a 2-inch soft plastic swim bait or a Ned rig or something in certain situations, but here we are. I would also put, poppers, chatterbaits, buzzbaits, square bills, deep cranks, spinner baits, jigs, Texas rigs, Neds, all of those things I think I'm just middle of the road at in terms of techniques. But if we shift our attention to what this week's fishing poll is about, our weaknesses, and if I had to pick one of the lures that I'm weakest with, I think a lot of you are probably going to laugh at me here, but I really think it might be a drop shot. I'm just not a good drop shot angler. I just don't do it a lot, right? I don't have a lot of practice with it. It's a weird deal for me to have the contact point be so far below my actual bait. I don't love using that light of gear for big fish. I just don't love drop shot fishing. And because of that, and because of the water that I fish around here, I also fish a lot of current, which is not great for drop shots. I just tend to shy away from it. And then in turn means I'm not that great of a drop shot angler. If I had to go with a number 2, I think, and it might be one of the hottest baits out there right now, but mid-strolling or shaking a minnow, I'm just not great at that either. Again, it's something I don't do a lot of. Just middle of the water column, strolling a jig head minnow. Even if I do have forward-facing sonar with me, it's just not something that I'm super confident in would be my mid-strolling abilities. And then third, I guess I might put something like a Carolina rig on here. I just don't fish it much in the situations and the places that I go very often. So again, you're seeing a pattern here. A lot of the things that I think I'm weak in are just because of where I fish and how I fish, and it's not something that makes its way into my daily fishing repertoire, which means I have a lot more practice with, 50 other different types of techniques and maybe not so much these 3. But let's get to the fun part here. It's not so much about me. Let's see what you guys said, because this could be some great recon for future episodes of Tackle Talk. If your weaknesses, the things that you identify in this fishing poll, are things that I think that maybe I'm fairly good at, then they would make for some awesome future episodes of Tackle Talk to really do some deep dives in some of the tips that I've learned over the years for some of these specific techniques. And I know we've done a lot of these episodes in the past. We've probably done an episode on most techniques at some point, but if it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, there's so much that I've learned, and I've gotten better as an angler, and I've learned little tips and tricks and read a whole lot and watched a whole lot since then that some of those probably deserve an update, to say the least. So let's get to your results here. Just like last week, this was an open-ended question, which means that you guys could write in any answer you want, and it makes calculating these results a nightmare from a time perspective. It probably took me well over an hour, maybe 2 hours, probably close to it, to actually line them up and count them effectively, because you can't just, export this and sort it alphabetically, because someone might write in spinnerbait, another person writes in a spinnerbait, another person writes in gotta be a spinnerbait, another one says regular spinnerbaits or traditional spinnerbaits. So you just can't organize them by alphabetical order or anything like that. You really have to go through and count them line by line. So that's what I did, and now we have the results. So the number 1 answer by an overwhelming margin, receiving over twice the votes as the next closest answer, was a jig, which is surprising to me, but we had a ton of answers that said jig or some sort of jig. Far and away, the number 1 response to the lure or technique that you guys were least confident in. And that's kind of crazy to me, because a jig is one of the most versatile, proven fish catchers of all time. It might be, maybe dipping into a little more old school nowadays, because a lot of people are going with like jig heads and then they're putting soft plastics on the back. We just talked about it a second ago. The whole jig head minnow, mid-strolling type fad, Demiki rigs that are going on right now. Nico rigs are having a big upswing. Maybe jigs are falling into the like old school camp. Maybe that might be something fun to explore someday. But yeah, just kind of crazy that a jig is so versatile. You can swim it, you can flip it, you can crawl it, drag it, hop it, You can burn them, you can slow roll them, skip it under docks, whatever you want to do. A jig is like almost the most versatile lure on the planet, and there's almost no wrong way to throw a jig. And maybe that's its downfall. Maybe it's because it's such a wild card and it's so versatile that it's tough for people to learn and master, I guess. That could very well be. But a jig was your number one answer for the bait that you guys are least confident in. If we go down the list here, the next most popular answer for the bait that you guys were least confident in was another surprise to me. It was a crankbait. Now, a crankbait is a little more wide open, right? So there's all kinds of different crankbaits out there. There's deep cranking, shallow crankbaits, flat-sided crankbaits, big, wide wobbling ones. So there are a lot of niches that I'm sure people could be a little less confident in, but this one was a big surprise to me. Most people didn't put a type of crankbait. They just said crankbaits in general. That was our number 2 answer. Number 3 was not so much of a surprise to me, and the number 3 answer was glide baits. And I totally get that. Glide baits are intimidating. They definitely work some places and some geographical areas better than others, so I definitely get that pick for sure. Number 4 was a frog. And I guess I also get that one a little bit too, because it's a very different technique than most. You're using heavier gear, heavier line, super heavy rods, definitely more specialized setups and techniques, and you throw it in very specific areas. Your hookup rate can be bad if your technique is a little off or you're ripping that frog too soon. I get it. You lose a lot of fish in the slop, so that one doesn't surprise me too much either. And now for your number 5, let's get a little quicker here because we'll go down the list a little faster. Number 5 was a swim bait, which I guess you could lump in with glide baits. That's kind of a tricky one, but the thing that I would say is that a multi-jointed swim bait is so different from a single jointed glide bait. Those are two very different baits. So probably good that you guys separated that a little bit, but even if you added up all the votes for glide baits and swim baits together, it still doesn't get you close to jig. So jig is still our overwhelming number 1 answer, even if you tried to bundle glide baits and swim baits. The next answer, number 6, was chatterbaits. Number 7 was jerk baits. Number 8 was spooks. Number 9 was Ned rigs, and 10 was spinner baits. Some other honorable mentions here, some really popular ones: buzz baits, drop shots, poppers, square bills. Texas rigs was on there a lot. Quite a few people just wrote in top water. Blade baits, flukes, lipless crankbaits was on there. Senkos, shaky heads, tubes, all kinds of stuff that made the list. So I think our big takeaway here, interesting enough, is that far and away your winner for the bait that the Tackle Talk listeners are least confident in is ironically one of the baits that I would say is the most basic, oldest, versatile, fishiest bait in the world, a jig. So I would say you can probably bank on some jig content heading your way sometime soon. All right, everybody. And finally here, we're going to get to the mailbag in just a second. But first, the Tackle Talk podcast is brought to you in part by Amped Outdoors. Amped is an industry leader in lithium batteries engineered and built for all sorts of marine applications. We're talking trolling motors, graphs, ice fishing, live sonar, kayak motors, you name it. Amped has a battery for whatever you're looking for. And with Amped, you get the highest quality components. You get things like waterproof case designs, Bluetooth connectivity so that you know when your battery is charging, when it's fully charged, or how much power you have left out there on the water. No more guessing. You can just pull up your app on your phone and check. Those type of features are available in a lot of their larger batteries through Amped Outdoors. A lot of times, if you get like a 50 amp hour or up battery, you're looking at things like Bluetooth standard. You're looking at things like heated charging standards so that you can safely charge your batteries in any weather condition. You're not supposed to charge a lot of lithium batteries under freezing. You can with those 50 amp hour and up amped batteries. You get all of that plus an industry leading 10-year no gimmick warranty and world-class customer support based out of Hudson, Wisconsin. They're a great family-owned company right here in the Midwest that makes awesome batteries at a great price. So you can head over to www.ampedoutdoors.com today and power your passion with Amped.
This is the Tackle Talk Podcast Mailbag, powered by Amped Outdoors, your source for premium, affordable lithium batteries.
All right, in this week's episode, our first question in the mailbag is from Dave, who says, "What's your number one favorite combo you own? one spinning and one casting, excluding obviously your NRX. Dave, honestly, yes, I do love my NRX, and I probably should for as much as I paid for it. I paid way too much not to love it. But if you set that rod aside, my favorite spinning combo that I have at the moment is probably still my Dobyns Cadence 712 SF with a Shimano Stratic on it. I'll tell you what, that 712 medium light, 7'1", fast, split grip spinning rod, that Cadence, is a killer rod under $200. And I actually just checked this the other day because I was looking for some other things over at the Rod Locker. The Rod Locker has those rods in stock, that 712 SF Cadence medium light, 7'1". They're in stock over there. And if you use code TackleTalkFebruary, you can get them for $180. They're normally $190. Just for listening to Tackle Talk, take $10 off that. Use code TackleTalkFebruary, and you get that rod for $180. That's a really fun all-around kind of finesse spinning rod. I throw everything from 1/8 ounce Ned rigs all the way up to like 1/4 ounce swim bait heads with little 3.5 inch paddle tails on them on that rod. I throw poppers. You can throw the buzz grub on that rod. I throw flukes. You can throw drop shots on that rod. Like I said, I don't throw drop shots a lot, but I have on that rod before. It's a really fun rod. And then if you put a 2000 or a 2500 size reel on there, it feels great. And I have thrown everything from a Vanford on it. I've thrown the Nasky. I've thrown Stratics on it, which is obviously what I have on it now. I've thrown the Shimano Sahara, and that's all just from the Shimano side. From the Daiwa side, let's see. I know I've had a Regal on it before. I've tried it with a Tatula. I had the Exceller on it for a while. It takes a lot of spinning reels really well. That's a fun little combo right there. On the casting side right now, this one might surprise you guys a little bit too, but it's my Daiwa Zillion combo. That's probably my favorite overall casting combo at the moment. It's one of my most expensive that I own, obviously, but gosh, that is a nice combo. I know that is way out of a lot of people's price ranges, but you asked me for my favorites. Those are probably them, and that Daiwa Zillion combo is nasty if you have the money. The next question is from Jack, who says, "Hey Andrew, 13-year-old Jack here. I have an important question. For Great Lakes finesse soft plastics like the Snack Craw and the Helgermites, how important is jig head style and weight compared to color and plastic choice, especially in clearer pressured water?" In that clear pressured water, I think the head weight is more important than the head style. I think the amount of weight that you have on that head, on that really small finesse plastic, drastically changes that fall rate. It changes how it looks when you hop it or you shake it down there. It determines how much of that bottom it stirs up when you're moving around down there. When a head is that light, and we're talking about 1/8 ounce sometimes, I just think the shape of that head or the style of that head is not nearly as important as the sheer weight and having a good hook on it. And then from there, yeah, I think the soft plastic choice in general is much more important than the head style when you're talking about those small finesse soft plastics. All right, the next question is from Jordan, who says, "What's up, Andrew? Great job on the podcast and all of that, but I know that you've heard all of that at this point. Your dedication to the show is appreciated. Anyway, Minnesota has just received some great news. Year-round catch and release bass season. Until now, March through mid to late May was off-season on inland waters and a lot of the Mississippi as well as Wisconsin border waters. That means we actually get to pre-spawn fish this year. Finally, any tips or maybe a theme for a pro tip for pre-spawn bites coming out of the cold water? Ice out varies, but we are 100% frozen over, obviously. Considering we never get to go out and fish before mid-May at the earliest, the end of March on should be very exciting. Thanks again for the podcast and good luck in 26, Jordan." Well, that's awesome, man. Congratulations. I'm happy for you guys up there. The fact that places have a closed season on bass is such a foreign concept to me. I can't imagine the ODNR coming in and having regulations that say I can't target bass during the spring. So I'm so glad that you guys finally get to experience pre-spawn and spawn fishing because it's a blast. But around here, pre-spawn, I kind of treat, this is going to be a bad comparison, but it's where my brain is going right now. I almost treat pre-spawn fishing like I'm fishing a cold front in the fall. Like, moving baits are definitely in play, but some are going to be more effective than others. So in pre-spawn, I have a lot of luck with baits with a tight wobble. So a lipless crankbait or rattle traps are a staple for me around that time, especially a good old red rattle trap. But I also like flat-sided crankbaits. like a Berkeley Fritzside, a Spro Little John, the Rapala OG Slims. All of those are really great pre-spawn crankbaits to throw up shallow. I also like a good old square bill in pre-spawn. KVD 1.0, KVD 1.5, Lucky Craft 1.5. I have a lot of those tied on during pre-spawn, or even like a Rapala DT4 can get some work done in pre-spawn up shallow. But lipless crankbaits, shallow crankbaits, flat sides, and small square bills, those are my favorite things to throw during pre-spawn. The next question is from Rick, who says, "Hey, Andrew, thanks for all your hard work you put in the podcast. I listen to and enjoy every episode. I used to get in Bassmaster magazine and have quite a few issues that I no longer need. Would you know of anyone that might like them for free? Thanks, Rick." That's cool, Rick. Thanks for offering that up. I'll tell you what, let's do something really cool right here. I would love for these to go to either a younger angler or someone that's listening with their kid. So if that's you listening to this right now, either a younger angler or a parent listening with their kid, the first person that emails me at tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com and says you would like these Bassmaster magazines to read, I will help facilitate to get those to you. So first come, first serve. Very first person. This episode drops at midnight, so I will look at the timestamps. The very first email that I get from someone that either has a kid or is a kid that would like these, let me know, and I will try and get with Rick and see if we can get these to you. So thank you, Rick. Awesome offer, and hopefully this makes somebody very happy. All right, next question is from Rory, who says, "What are your tips for learning a new fishery fast? I'm an East Tennessee fisherman. I'm 14 and really enjoy fishing. Love listening to your show. Thanks for the great content. Sincerely, Rory." Rory, I have a tip for you. I have an answer, but it is going to be a very, very obvious answer. You have to fish it a lot. If you want to learn a body of water faster, you just have to fish it more frequently in a short period of time. So if it takes you, let's for argument's sake say, it takes you 12 outings on a lake to start to feel really comfortable with it. Well, then the way that you learn that lake fast is you knock out those fishing trips in a shorter period of time. So the person that fishes that lake 12 times in a month is going to learn that lake way faster than the person who fishes that lake 12 times in 6 months or 12 times in a year. Very obvious, but it's the only really good answer I can give you. I don't want to just blow smoke and give you some sort of like rosy answer here. That is how you learn a new fishery fast, is you just fish it more times in a shorter period of time. So Rory, you just got to put your nose down. Whatever fishery that it is that you want to learn fast, spend as much time out there as possible. All right, the next question is from Collins, who says, "Hey, Andrew, I was recently fishing for black tuna out of my kayak, and I went for an unexpected swim. I had my phone, my wallet, my keys in my chest pocket of my AFCO bibs because I thought it was waterproof. Well, it was not, and all of my stuff got soaked. Everything turned out to be okay after some rice. So my question is, how do you secure your gear that you don't want to get wet? I've thought about a dry bag, but I would rather not go that route due to lack of space. Thanks, Collins." Hey, Collins, man, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that you went overboard. I'm sorry that you took a dip in the old kayak and your stuff got wet. Hopefully you didn't lose too much stuff. That's always like the bad part about flipping the kayak, is that all of your gear is so hard to get back. Like you might get a lot of it back, but you're definitely going to lose a couple things, I would guess. So I'm glad the phone and everything is okay and came back from the rice trick. But this is another question that I wish I had a really great answer for, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. Collins, I do the same thing that you did. I keep my phone usually like in my pocket, or it's on the floorboard of my kayak. Like it's not secure at all. My wallet is in my back pocket probably. My keys are in my pocket or they're on the floor somewhere. Like I don't secure my stuff almost at all. I've ruined 2 good phones over the years doing that. I don't bring any sort of waterproof box or bag with me anymore for the most part. I really just keep my stuff in my pockets of either my pants or my coat or my hoodie or whatever. I know it's stupid, and I wish I was a good enough liar to sit here and make up something and say, oh no, actually I put my keys and wallet in something really smart like a waterproof bag or a dry box or something. But nope, I just don't. And I take that risk. I know that is the risk. I know my flaws, but I do need to find a better way to keep my stuff protected. Now, I've had kayaks in the past that have had some sort of hatch or something where you can put stuff in that is waterproof. So like my old town had a compartment in the PDL unit up front that you could put stuff in that was waterproof. I used to keep my phone in there. My Hobie had something similar, but my current Sholey from Crescent doesn't have any sort of like internal stowaway compartment or anything in front of you. So I just carry my stuff like normal. I should find a better way because I have been in your shoes and it is not fun. All right, the next question is from Steven, who says, "Hey, Andrew, guess it's not much of a question, but I just wanted to say I love listening to your show. I'm 36 years old and I've only been really fishing for a year or so. I went fishing as a kid, but never did it all the time. My 13-year-old son is also very into it. We're mainly bank anglers, but I plan on getting a John boat this spring. We live in Western New York, and I've just learned, or feel like I've learned so much from the content that you put out. Thank you, and keep up the good work." Well, hey, Steven, I appreciate that. Tell your son hi, too. These messages are literally the best. Like, this is what fishing should be about. It should be something that is passed down for generations, that facilitates quality time with friends and children and grandchildren. You know, those are the memories that your son is going to have forever. Like, I'll tell you what, that John boat that you are about to buy will be the best money that you've ever spent. You will look back in 20 years, and I can guarantee you will not regret that purchase. Just do it. Buy the John boat, take the fishing trips with your son, knock some new water off your bucket list. I mean, I'll tell you, when I was in my teens, honestly, probably about the age of your son, it was probably somewhere around 12 or 13. My dad did kind of the same thing. He brought home a used aluminum bass tracker boat just randomly one day, and I remember being so pumped about it. We had a lot of good times in that boat. I am sure you and your son with that John boat will have the same thing. So yes, buy the John boat, take the trips, make the memories. Great to hear, Steven. All right, next question is a short one, and it's here from Isaac, and it says, "What's your favorite square bill?" If I had to pick one, I guess it's either the KVD 1.5 or the Lucky Craft LC 1.5. Those are just my two go-tos normally. Next question is from John, who says, "Hey, Andrew, I absolutely love your show, and I think you are such a polite and well-mannered young man, and I have a ton of respect for you. I was just wondering what your thoughts are on the bladed jig craze. They have just completely overdone this thing with so many size variations, such as blades, hooks, weights, colors, and it's crazy in my opinion. I'm just a pretty simple kind of guy. I like to use the Hags bladed jig, especially for the price at under $6. Just curious on your take, is it a money market promotion, or do you really believe we need all of these options? Thank you for all you do for the community, sir. God bless you and your family." Well, thank you, John. I appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. That's very, very nice of you. As far as bladed jigs go, I think my answer to this is like yes and no. No, I don't think that the bait itself is completely overdone, because I think you can make a pretty good argument that the bladed jig is the most innovative, successful new lure probably of the past 20 years. Like, nothing has come through and put a shock in the fishing world like the bladed jig did in a long, long time. But I do believe, like you said, the amount of variations that we're getting is crazy. I mean, I made this episode last year. We did a whole segment on the show when Z-Man came out with the baby jack. I was like, why in the world do we need another downsized chatterbait from the same brand that's already given us 2 to 3 downsized chatterbaits before? We had the Minimax, we got the Minimax Evo, we got the baby jack. It's just ridiculous. Same thing with the regular size chatterbaits from Z-Man. We had the original Z-Man chatterbait, we had the cross-eyes chatterbait, the chatterbait Evo, the chatterbait Elite, the Jackhammer, the Tungsten Evo, and those are just some of the ones from Z-Man. That doesn't count the 5,000 other options that are out there from other companies. And it's kind of crazy how many options there are, but I don't think the options from other companies are as crazy because competition is good. I'm glad there are a lot of companies that are making bladed jigs because I want competition, just like I'm glad that there are, 100 companies that are making crankbaits or soft plastics or jigs or whatever. It's the same thing with a bladed jig, fine. But what does make me laugh is when someone like Z-Man comes out every year with their 16th iteration of the chatterbait, and we add, 2 or 3 more every single year. At some point, it's just kind of like, come on, we've got what we need. Now go out and make something actually cool or new, and don't just mail it in and give us a 0.00002% smaller chatterbait. All right, and the last question here is from Patrick, who says, "Hi, Andrew. My name is Patrick, and I live in northern Chicago. I love the podcast. My question is, there are so many different big brands for soft plastics, and I feel like if I get caught up with all of the smaller brands, I would lose all my money. Right now, I really like Zoom soft plastic lures. What are your thoughts on them and any other big soft plastic brands that you would recommend? Thank you, Patrick." Hey, Patrick, I hear you, man. When I dive down the rabbit hole of like really cool small businesses and fishing, it's awesome. And I love those products, but you also take a hurting in the wallet. But it's really fun to explore all of those baits from smaller companies. So I wouldn't just focus on big brands because you're going to miss out on a lot of cool tackle. But with that being said, you zeroed in on my favorite soft plastic brand overall, Zoom. I think Zoom is just the best overall choice in terms of price, selection, and availability. There are so many SKUs in the Zoom family. I mean, I counted 27 different types of worms just from Zoom alone. I just paused this and I went to their website and counted them myself because I wanted to see. I knew there was a bunch of them and I wanted to be able to actually tell you the numbers. So yes, I counted on their website 27 different types of worms alone. That doesn't even count creature baits and craws and swim baits and flukes and all that kind of stuff. And then if you take something like the finesse worm, there's 29 different colors in that worm alone. So the selection that Zoom gives you is just mind-blowing. Their pricing is great. They're very affordable. They come in big packs, like the trick worm comes in a pack of 20 and it's $6.99. And Zoom is available almost anywhere. Walmart, big box stores, online, you name it. Almost anywhere that carries tackle is going to carry Zoom. So what are my thoughts on Zoom? I think Zoom just rules. I love Zoom. I throw a ton of Zoom. But as far as other soft plastic brands that I like, I really like the Strike King Rage Tail series. I like Great Lakes Finesse for smaller baits. I actually really like the Rapala Crush City soft plastics. The Ned BLT and the Freeloader from them are both awesome. I like Z-Man for some things, just depends. Some Berkeley, I throw a lot of Yum. I think Yum is actually really slept on, but like you, I think if I had to pick one overall, I'm going to go Zoom. All right, everybody, that is the episode today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you want to interact with the show, head over to tackletalkpodcast.com. There you can click mailbag and you can submit your own mailbag question for an upcoming episode. You can also click fishing poll and you can vote in next week's fishing poll to be a part of the episode next Tuesday. If you have any questions, tackletalkpodcast@gmail.com. You can also keep up with us on Instagram and Facebook, both at Tackle Talk Podcast. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday for another brand new episode of Tackle Talk.
Thank you for listening to the Tackle Talk Podcast. Tackle Talk is produced by Andrew Hayes. Copyright 2019. For more, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.